This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your friends with a pussy magnet.
Oh, hey! Welcome, 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 my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I don't know, they're both good. I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Oh, cringe. I couldn't help myself. Anyway, I am your host, Freya Graff, and I am a holistic sex coach and educator and yoni mapping therapist. So basically, I make my living massaging vaginas and teaching people about sex. Yeah, pretty cool. So as you can imagine, we are going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up, you're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we get stuck in though, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Menang people. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content on Noongar country, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if y'all are ready, let's flap and do this. Oh, is there such thing as having too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever. I'm leaving it in. It's my podcast.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up a couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
Hey, my labial loves. Welcome back to what is going to be a truly fascinating episode today with Margi Bowden, aka the Narcissist Nab on Instagram. Now, Margie only launched her Instagram account educating about narcissism in 2021, and when she began sharing her personal journey and insights there a little bit later, her followers increased by 50,000 in a month. So this is obviously a topic that is much needed and that people want to hear about. And I've been badgering Margie for months to come on the potty because I so badly wanted to chat with her and discuss this silent killer, narcissistic abuse. So as a highly qualified teacher, professional life coach and counsellor, Margie is also a survivor of 40 years of enduring narcissism in her own life and is now a fierce and knowledgeable advocate for those suffering from narcissistic abuse in relationships. So I'm really thrilled to have you in the lounge. Pull up a cushion and welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here, Margie. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So I will just warn everyone, I'm at the tail end of COVID, so my voice might sound a bit snotty and I might be muting myself every now and then to have a bit of a coughing fit. So excuse the nasally voice. But I'm really excited to just launch in, and I know, Margie, you say that there are always so many red flags, but without the language or correct vocabulary to articulate it or an understanding of narcissistic personality traits, it's like quicksand. It's like a slow death of self. So I'm keen to chat about how to recognize the red flags and how to advocate for yourself if you're in a relationship with a narcissist. And I know one of the first red flags is around sex and intimacy because we've spoken about that on a chat that we've already had. So I'm really interested in that. But first, I'd love to just cover a few basics before we get stuck into that nitty-gritty. So can you tell us what is a narcissist? What's the technical definition or diagnosis of a narcissist?
Well, look, the interesting thing about narcissism is that there actually isn't an agreed definition. While there's the definition from the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual that the medical profession use, there's still a lot of disagreement about exactly what is it. And so that creates in itself a real difficulty for people, because when people say narcissism, people automatically think of the grandiose narcissist who, I love myself and I step on people and I value, money and power. But, in actual fact, narcissism is such a very, very broad term. And for so many clients, I say, look, does it actually matter if they're a narcissist? They're displaying all these personality traits that are very toxic. So I'll just quickly talk about the 9 traits that the DSM-5 uses, just for a starter. So there's the number 1, and to be diagnosed with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, supposedly you need to have at least 5 or more of these traits. So those traits are a grandiose sense of self-importance. Preoccupied, number 2 is, being preoccupied with, unlimited fantasies about power, brilliance, beauty, ideal love. The next one is that they believe that they're special and unique and can really only be understood by other people who are special and unique. Number 4 is that they require excessive admiration. The next one is that they have a sense of entitlement, that their needs are more important than anybody else's and they should be met. They're interpersonally exploitative. The big one that I think we'll talk more about today is their lack of empathy. And finally, the 8th one is that they're envious of others and they think people are envious of them. And then finally, that they show arrogant or haughty behaviours. Now, that's the very that's sort of the list that people look at. And the difficulty is it's really confusing, because you may be with a partner who does have narcissistic personality traits, but you look at that list and it doesn't really give you a whole lot of information but what does that look like in my life? So, I could have read that list many years ago and said, that's not what I'm dealing with. But it's how those traits then manifest in someone's life. And I think that's where the DSM-5 comes a little bit under attack, that it's, so what does that lack of empathy look like in situations? And what situations does it then create such toxicity? Just someone lacking empathy.
Oh, totally. And I think that's the really tricky bit, is like, it's not black and white. It's not as simple as, oh, they're a narcissist and they're just a terrible person and it's really obvious. It's, like I have this is a bit personal, I guess, but I have a parent who my siblings and I and my mum are pretty convinced that my dad's a narcissist, or at least has very narcissistic tendencies. And it's never been as simple as just figuring that out and going, oh, sweet, let's just cut him out. He's a bad person. It's not good for us to have him in our life. It's very toxic. And so that's that, It's really confusing when you love someone who has these tendencies or these traits, because, they might act like they love you. They might have actually done a lot of really wonderful things for you. They might be really charismatic. They might be really intelligent, and there are good times and there are good memories, but that doesn't negate the fact that they're still really toxic and really hurting you to have them in your life. So I think that real kind of grey area, that confusing nature of the narcissist, of having someone in your life that is narcissistic, it's a drainer. It's so draining. And it's always been confusing for us, because we're like, well, is it do you label them a full-blown narcissist, or are there varying levels of this? Like, can you be sort of displaying narcissistic traits, but you're not necessarily like a full-blown clinical narcissist, like so it's really hard to classify them and then hard to know how to handle it and what to do about it, in my experience.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because they do have good traits, and that's the thing. Narcissists have some really great traits. That they're nice, and in actual fact, when they initially hook us in, they love bomb us and they idolise us, and we are hooked. Like, we are told we get some really great treatment, and for so many survivors, that belief that there is good in them, and they've all also got a sob story or a victim story. The empathic or compassionate or tolerant or forgiving human wants to fix them and wants to say, well, I can love you. If I love you enough, then you might change. And for a narcissist, that's a bit of a myth, because they're very disorder. And we can talk more about that, really means that they're never going to accept accountability or responsibility for anything that they did wrong. So they've got nothing to change. And so for so many survivors, they say, but there's good in them. I remember the good. So I'll stick at it. They're not all bad. Meanwhile, your life is being destroyed. Your complete identity is being destroyed. But you can't quite believe that anyone would really do this on purpose, would they? And so, we then step into, an abuse cycle where they initially shower us with love, and they're beautiful and they're wonderful, and you're my soulmate. I've never met anybody like you. All my exes were crazy, but not you. And everybody wants to be loved. We think, wow, this person thinks I'm really special. And so once we're locked in, the narcissist then begins to slowly, oh so slowly, devalue us. And if we're talking about what are the red flags that people overlook, at this stage, we overlook those red flags. And we say, but they are nice, and I am their soulmate, and I am different. They've told me this, so I'm going to excuse the fact that they just didn't show up. I'm going to excuse the fact that he accidentally slept with an ex, but he didn't mean it. He does love me. I'm special, and we just overlook and we sort of cancel out those red flags because we've been so love bombed.
Oh, God. It's just devastating. It's so heartbreaking. And I know you would get this question all the fucking time, I'm sure. But is there any getting through to them or changing them? Like, I know a lot of women who are in a relationship with a person like this might, of course, hold on to the hope that they can help them change, or that there is still the potential for this person to learn to be more loving and empathetic and less toxic, or that maybe if they went to therapy enough, it'd help get through to them and change things for the better. But is this just a misguided, fruitless thing to hope for? Like, is it possible for them to change? And is there hope? Or is no amount of therapy going to make a difference, Hey, Babe Towns. So sorry to interrupt, but I simply had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that you've seriously got to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in, and there you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies or discounts for offerings from guests who've been interviewed on the podcast, inspiring and valuable content, thought-provoking conversations, and just general support from a community of labial legends. It's a safe, non-judgmental space where you can go to ask the questions that you can't ask anywhere else, seek advice or solidarity from other like-minded folk, tell stories that are usually too much for the average conversation, and also play a role in shaping the podcast with your input. So head over to the link in the show notes or just search up the Labia Lounge group on the old Facey, and I hope I see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
Well, look, it's interesting because I was doing some reading the other day, because this is a question that keeps people in the abuse cycle, the belief that they can change. And I imagine that, every person that's been in a narcissistic relationship has Googled, has bought self-help books, has gone to therapy, because that they feel, they know that intuitively in their gut there's something that's not right. There's something that's not right. And so, who wouldn't want to Google, can a narcissist change? And personally, I think if you can find things online that says yes, then perhaps, psychologists like to promote the fact that everybody, that, there's redemption for everybody. But the type of intensity and the counselling and the cost and the dedication to a narcissist putting themselves into relentless therapy, it will make them aware of their behaviour. Will it change them? No. It will never change them. Can they stop and manage how they talk to people? Maybe. But I think if you're hanging on to the fact that a narcissist can change, I think it's a myth. The irony is that narcissists do need people that are deeply empathic, that are rescuers, that are kind, that want to believe, that are forgiving. They need a partner like that. Like hell, how would anybody else tolerate that?
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my next question, which is, do narcissists sort of seek out and choose specific people and partners? Like, are they more attracted to people who they think they can manipulate more easily? Do they choose a specific kind of person because it suits their needs? Like,
100%.
Are they being really calculated
100%.
about the people that they go for?
So if you think a narcissist, one of the things with the disorder is that it's their capacity to sustain relationships, interpersonal relationships, intrapersonal relationships. That is what they can't do. And so if you're going to look for, narcissists need people to fill a void in themselves. So they look for people kind of like objects, because a narcissist is interested in promoting self and looking after self. And they need control. They crave control. They must stay in control. And there's, a lot of reasons why, but I don't think that's actually, it's more, I think this situation is more for survivors to understand, what is actually happening. And so the narcissist needs a partner who is deeply compassionate, who is forgiving, who is conscientious, who is sensitive, who is deeply empathic. Who else could tolerate the abuse and forgive the abuse? So if a narcissist is going to find a partner to get their supply, and every narcissist needs a different type of supply. So, a narcissist might need somewhere to live. They might need money. They might need sex. They might need, a sporting buddy. They might need a promotion. So they look for people to provide them their supply. And that's what you are. Narcissist kids, a supply. How can I use and manipulate this person to get what I need? And that's not how normal people, whatever normal people are, that's kind of not how we approach life. And that's why it's really difficult for survivors. You know, I hear survivors say all the time, how could they? Yeah, no, we just can't quite understand that, can we? We can't quite get it. We can't accept that this is how someone operates. It's just not something that we can wrap our heads around.
So how do they get like this? What's the deal? Like, are they born with it? Are they traumatized as children? Like, is it something from childhood? Like, how does someone wind up a narcissist?
Yeah. So here's the next thing about narcissism is that, you know, is there clear research? I mean, people have been talking about it and, you know, since the late 1880s and writing about it and researching it and documenting it. Is there any one agreed upon cause or reason? You know, why? How did, you know, like people worry, oh my God, but there's, you know, currently, you know, what can be accepted is that it seems to be something that's done in childhood. Now, obviously, it's layered. There's a lot of different things that come into it. Like, you know, we're all born with personalities. How come there can be 5 kids and only one child shows those narcissistic traits? So, you know, there's a belief that there's, you know, 3, if I talk about childhood, you know, that's when our personality develops. There's sort of this abuse, neglect, under evaluation of a child. You know, that they experience a parent who is very harsh, who can't give them the love and the nurturing as a child. So they say, well, you know, that's one thing that can contribute. Then there's a parent who over-evaluates the child who, you know, is the spoiled kid, I guess, who gets everything they want, that there's never anything that they do. They're never reprimanded. They're never challenged. They're perfect. They're praised for their appearance and for their great marks, but not for, you know, their compassion or their good deeds. And so this is another thing. And, of course, the narcissistic parent, if you've got a parent who's narcissistic and you're copying their behaviours, then that's something else that's been, you know, identified. Having said that, you can have a narcissistic parent and show no signs of narcissism. You can actually show signs of, you know, abuse. You know, you've been abused by narcissistic parents. So it's, once again, it's, I think you go, why aren't we talking about, why isn't there more information? Why didn't I know this many, many years ago? It's because when you sit down and you actually look at the research, there's layer upon layer upon layer of, well, what the hell? What causes it? You know, there's so many different schools of thought. But I think the one thing that you know, most people can agree on, that, it's something that happens in childhood. It's got to do with parenting.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Totally. Well, parents out there, please don't create any more narcissists. Yikes. So I would love to get stuck into some, I guess, how to look out for the red flags, how to advocate for yourself, what to do if you're in a narcissistic relationship, how to survive and get the fuck out of there, and then how to recover and rebuild your identity and blah, blah, blah. But first, I'd love to do the segment Get Pregnant and Die.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise?
So this is the time to share with us a story of how your sex education might have failed you, or any sort of anecdote or story around your sex ed and what you didn't learn enough about and what you would have loved to have learned more about.
God, where do I start? I think one of the things with sex education is, and I hopefully have made amends with my own 3 daughters, but, you know, it wasn't something, as far as, you know, I got taught that there's sexual acts and there's parts of the body, but there was never a continued conversation in the home, or there was never a parallel conversation that actually your head and your heart and all of you is involved here. It's not just an act, but you're a whole human being, and there's feelings. It encompasses everything. Whereas, it was very much for me, well, it's a sex act, and there's, as I said, and that's that your sex education stops there. Rather than, hey, this is really normal, sex is not taboo. Everybody does it, well, if they want to. And it's really cool to talk about it all the time. And I think if I'd sort of had that opportunity, I'd been able to throw out to my mum a little bit about what happened to me as a 18, 19, 20-something, what continued to happen. I would have had a place, to go, well, so maybe this isn't normal what's happening to me. Maybe my experience isn't normal, because that conversation didn't take place normally, It's sex. We don't talk about sex. Sex happens behind closed doors. So, which it did in my growing up, So, I just think a much more open and frank discussion about everything to do with sex. There's nothing off limits. Let's talk about it. Because how else do young people, who do they ask? If there's not an adult, and I'm not saying I'm the wisest person in the world, but at least it's just another place where my kids can say, hey, is that normal? Hey, what do you reckon about that? Hey, she said that, he did that, and then discuss it.
Oh, totally love that. I think like you're saying, these sorts of things go on behind closed doors, and they're not being talked about openly enough. And so therefore so much terrible behavior and so much shit sex goes on because we're not aware that that's not normal. That's not baseline, like there's people putting up with atrocious
100%.
behavior and gaslighting and really poor treatment during sex or inside a relationship, because it all goes on behind closed doors, and it's also hush hush and taboo as a topic of conversation that no one's talking about it and comparing notes and sharing their experiences with their friends, and then getting feedback that, oh, that's not very good, that shouldn't be happening, that's not normal. I think if we were all comparing notes and talking about this sort of thing more, there would be a lot less space for that shadowy behavior, for shitty sex, for the narcissistic stuff going on in relationships, and that really terrible treatment and manipulation, because shining a light on these topics, having conversations with your friends, with your it's just like a game changer. And so I think it's actually like very, very dangerous, the fact that these topics are so taboo and stigmatized, because it actually disempowers us really, really badly, and it leaves us vulnerable to being in situations and being uneducated and ignorant of things, or naive of things that make us vulnerable to shitty treatment and manipulation by other people. So I totally hear you on that one. We need to be talking about it more, and just, all of it. Okay, so hit us with some red flags. What are we looking out for? What are some telltale signs of a narcissist, some common red flags to look out for?
Yeah. I think because, narcissists are manipulative, and, one of their tools that they love to use is it's gaslighting. And this is when, you're like the big one, and I've forgotten it. This is when you are ever so subtly, and this is, I mentioned the devaluation process. This is when the narcissist, suddenly you were God's gift to the human race, and you were their answer to, you were that girl. And then, once you believe them and you are that girl, this is when all this sort of the red flags start to, not that the red flags aren't there from the start, because the narcissist will talk about marriage. They're really full on from the start, so much so that you think, what? You asked me that? You want to do that? Like it's fast. It's fast. And, for many young girls, it's, wow, he's really into me, isn't he? He wants to marry me. Like, we've known each other 4 weeks. I must be really special. So that sort of fast stuff can happen initially, but as well as those signs that he doesn't actually give, or she doesn't actually give us stuff, and that is, being late. If I've heard it once, I've heard it, 500 times, that, on those initial dates, the lack of respect that the narcissist has means that they'll be late. That's a classic. There's no respect for your time. So respect is missing. So if you can think about, I've just met this guy, and your gut always tells you, you're so whoa, sort of euphoric at meeting Mr. So you think perfect. You override your gut. So he'll be late. He may want you to do things that you're not completely comfortable with. They cross boundaries, whether it's sexual boundaries or, we're going to go here, you're going to do that, and your gut says, not that comfortable, but hey, I'm God's gift to him and we're soulmates, so it must be okay. So there, and the gaslighting. So gaslighting is, you said you'd pick me up at 10, and your reality is denied. No, I didn't. I didn't say that. No, you must be mistaken. I said I'd pick you up over there. And so you question yourself. You think, I'm pretty sure you said you'd pick me up outside this place. And, the narcissist says, no, you're wrong. Or, they might say something to upset you or do something. And when you ask them, that didn't make me feel so good. There's straight away invalidation. And often, because that's a narcissistic injury, anybody questioning them. So you may even get glimpses of their rage. They find it very difficult to manage how they react, their reactions. So you may get, whoa, wasn't expecting that. Gee, I didn't think it was that big a deal. So you do get. I just think, in a normal, and I use normal, for want of a better word, but when it's right in a relationship, it's right, and you don't, it's peaceful. You're not questioning. Your gut's not churning. It's just right. And with a narcissistic partner, you very quickly become anxious. Did they really say that? I'm not really sure. Can I really trust them? So they plant these seeds of you doubting yourself, self-doubt, because of they manipulate and gaslight. And
erode your intuition.
Well, basically, people say with being with a narcissist long term, they basically erode your identity. Whether it's like I've got clients who are hugely creative, whether it's musical, whether it's in the fashion industry, whether it's, in the academic industry, whatever. And the narcissist will slowly take away your capacity to flourish. People who, I don't even play my instrument anymore. I used to perform. I used to, I used to create. I was so creative. I used to create fashion. But I don't anymore. because I've been told over and over again and invalidated over and over again, stop doing that. Why are you doing that? You don't think you're any good at that, are you? That's crap. Don't know why you bother.
God, it's just horrific. And I feel like they're really good at isolating you and cutting you off from any other opinions other than theirs. And basically that's, why it's so effective, that erosion of your self-worth, your sort of self-esteem, your intuition, your belief in yourself and your belief in your own thoughts and feelings. Like, it's just completely gone because they're really good at cutting you off from all of that, and then making sure that their voice is the only voice that you're exposed to. Their voice is the only voice that you're hearing, because they're sort of cutting you off from your friends, your support networks, your family, anyone that would basically get in the way of what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah. So I can't tell you how many people I know who have been moved interstate, suburbs, countries, because the narcissist does like to separate you from your support. Even if you've got, a very, very close friend or a close family, the narcissist will plant seeds of doubt. So they'll tell you stories about the people who you rely on the most, and you start questioning and doubting. And they'll do that, like if the narcissist tries to crack onto a girlfriend and the girlfriend says, I don't feel really comfortable about this, but, your partner was making eyes at me or texted me, and you confront the narcissist, they will smear your friend. And they will manipulate you to then thinking, oh, she's the bad one. She's actually out to get me.
God, it's nightmare fuel, isn't it?
Mm.
So I'm wondering about in the bedroom, because I know we've spoken before and you've mentioned there are some pretty big red flags that you start to see quite quickly in the bedroom and in sex. So maybe you could speak on those a little bit, because I'm sure there'll be people that might hear you talk about it and go, oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And once again, getting back to, me saying I just wish that sex had been positively discussed, I think people battle along with things that are not normal in the bedroom. And, I know different posts or reels that I've done about sex or intimacy. I've had lots of women DM me and going, oh, my God, that was me too.
Excuse this unseemly interruption, my darlings. I must ask a wee little favour of you. I'm shamelessly seeking reviews and 5-star ratings for the poddy because, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's pretty fab, and the more people who get to hear it, the more people it can help. Reviews and ratings make it more likely to get recognised by the algorithmic gods and suggested to other listeners to check out. Plus, they make me feel pretty good and appreciated as I continue to pour my heart and soul into creating this baby for you. Now, I promise I don't mazz over them or anything like that. I mostly just read them out to Locke with a big grin on my face, and he says something like, "See, you're killing it. Proud of you, babe." And then I tuck it away for a rainy day when I'm filled with self-doubt and existential dread about being self-employed. So, doing this really does make a difference and is an easy little act of support that you can take in just a minute or two by either going to Spotify and leaving 5 stars for the show, or writing a written review and leaving 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Or if you're a real overachiever, you could do both. Whoa now. That would be kind of crazy. Crazy awesome, obviously. Like, that would be super ideal. Would love that. If you're writing a review though, just be sure to only use G-rated words, because despite the fact that this is a podcast about sexuality and all that good stuff, the platforms censor words like sex and won't actually show your review. Lame. Anyway, oh, you're going to do it right now while I wait? Oh, yeah. No, awesome. Great. That's like, yeah, great idea. May as well just like quickly click that 5-star button before we get on with it and, forget or whatever. I mean, life just kind of gets in the way sometimes. So I totally agree. It would be best to just do it now while we're talking about it, while we're on the topic. Totally. Yep. Oh, I can feel those 5-star reviews rolling in. Fuck yeah. All right. Well, thank you much, Lee. You're a total gem, and I'll let you get back to the episode now. Love ya.
So because the narcissist, I mentioned in the DSM-5, the big thing about narcissists is they lack empathy. So they lack the capacity to feel what someone else is feeling. They can intellectually, or they can have like a cognitive empathy where they observe, they use that very well. They know how to act, but they don't feel for the other person. So, if we assume or if we believe that sex and intimacy in a relationship grows because of empathy and communication, that's really two really important ingredients for a great sex life, whatever that looks like. The narcissist, goes into a relationship without empathy. So what does that look like in the bedroom? It means that they don't care what you like. Don't try and tell them what you like, and don't try and tell them that you don't like something, because that communication door is shut. So what does that look like long term? Well, I might have heard, 1% of people saying, no, the narcissist performs in the bedroom. That's because that's valuable to them. But in most relationships, the majority of relationships, you will not have a great sex life with a narcissist. It's not going to happen. So, and why doesn't it happen? Because they don't care what you like. Hello, it's normally, not always, but, if you're going to have sex with another person, it kind of matters what the other person is, how the other person is feeling. And this is a really big red flag, because the narcissist, it's an act. I'll talk about narcissism and pornography in a minute, but, just normal married couple, we get married, I hear over and over again the sex stopped on the wedding night, or the wedding night was awful. It was terrible. It was disgusting. Feedback about the narcissist not giving a stuff. I don't care about what you're feeling as far as sex and intimacy, because I don't have empathy. How can I care? Why would I care? I don't care about anybody but myself. So there's lots of, especially not just young people, lots of people out there really battling with no intimacy in their lives and being told by the narcissist, you're frigid, it's your fault, you don't want it. And the person going quietly insane thinking, I think I do. I think I actually would really love a meaningful sex life with someone. I think I actually would love that. But you're gaslit and you're manipulated and told, no, you don't. I mean, I've had women say, it doesn't matter how, I will dress up in my best lingerie and walk in front of the narcissist, trying to get an interest. And the narcissist yawns and falls asleep because that's not important to them at that time. So, people go for years and years without sex in an abusive relationship. And I don't mean that the guy or the woman or the man or the person is punching that person up every night. It's a psychological coercive abuse. And you're going quietly insane because there's no empathy for you.
Yeah, wow. And you mentioned porn and narcissists watching a lot of porn, and it did make me think like, oh my God, that's actually really frightening, because so much porn is just like incredibly over sensationalized, very intense. There can be a lot of, I guess, romanticizing. No, I guess glorification of some pretty gnarly, intense stuff.
Yep.
That it's not everyone's cup of tea. And so I've heard from clients of stories where they've been with someone who now I'm thinking, yeah, they definitely were a narcissist. We were suspecting, but I'm pretty sure they certainly were, where like they have had, you know, this person who watches a lot of porn and I would say has a porn addiction and has like tied them up, shoved a butt plug in, done all of these things to them and then just left the room and left them there for like hours, you know, just completely non-consensual, totally horrifying stuff. And it's sort of making me think, oh my gosh, that is quite a scary thing to have in the hands of a narcissist. You know, if they're watching this really, really intense stuff on a screen and obviously becoming quite interested in the idea of like playing that out and sort of replicating that, then, you know, someone with no empathy who has a porn addiction and is attracted to these really intense, probably fetish or kink based or power play based sexual acts, like that's terrifying, you know.
Well, it's no secret that narcissists watch a lot of porn. And I'm not being moral. You can, I'm not saying, you know, no one should watch porn. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not being moralistic at all. But narcissists tend to watch more porn based on literature and studies than heterosexual. In this, I'm talking about heterosexual relationships. They're big porn watchers. And if you think about why do they love porn so much? It's because porn requires no respect, instant gratification. It's all about performance, and there's no connection to anybody. You don't have to connect to watch porn. You just have to watch it. They don't have to give. It's just on demand. And often the porn is degradation. And that, well, if you don't have empathy, you don't care what you're watching. You're going, whoa, I'm getting off. This is great. But, you know, sometimes you might go, oh, no, oh, God, I can't watch that. But the narcissist, remember, doesn't have any empathy. So porn's great. Porn's really, really good. And you do hear partners of narcissists say, you know, the porn is a really big problem for us. Now, if you have got a problem in a relationship, like, you know, you watch porn day and night and it really bothers me, the narcissist is not going to hear what you say and say, let's talk about that. What might that look like? They're going to gaslight you because they want what they want. I want to watch porn and you're not going to stop me, and I don't actually care if it bothers you or not. So you will hear them say, well, if you had sex with me more, then I wouldn't have to watch porn. Well, if you were, you know, not so frigid, if you weren't so fat and ugly, I'd want to have sex with you. So once again, it becomes that there's no responsibility for the fact that, you know, I do watch way too much porn and, yeah, it is a bit of an addiction. It's a problem. What might we do about this? That they then put it onto you and manipulate you into thinking, so can, you know, that identity that is destroyed, you've got someone who starts to think, and they do, it's my problem. Really, I feel like the only thing I can do about it is tell people about it, tell people so that they know, you know, if you're experiencing this, maybe it's not you.
Yeah, totally. Something that I found, sort of a different situation because it was a parent figure rather than a partner, but I found it kind of infuriating and very confusing because, you know, he'd be a certain way at home to us behind closed doors, and then if you tried to kind of tell your friends about it or anything like that, when they'd come and visit after school, you know, he'd just be so lovely and charming and sort of humorous, and they'd be like, oh, your dad's not that bad. I don't know what you're talking about. And so, you know, like I just think it's awesome that there's an account like yours, and no wonder you jumped up 50,000 followers so quickly, and no wonder people are so loyal and engaged in your online community, because people are just like, oh, thank fuck, someone is validating my experience. Someone is talking about this thing that I thought was just me, like I think it's really, really powerful and so important that you're getting the word out about this sort of thing, because I think it's more common than people realize.
I guess because, everyone, I guess survivors of narcissistic abuse, whether it's you're out or you're still in that abusive relationship, you're very isolated and alone, because all of this abuse happens behind closed doors. The narcissist, you might hear people say the narcissist wears a mask. And do they know that they're being like this? Well, if they did know, if they were oblivious, they'd be like this all the time, to the neighbours, to the family, to friends. They'd be like that all the time, but they're not. They put on a face. Very, very charismatic, very lovable. They can be the pillars of the church. They can be raising money to save stray pets and come home and close the door and begin their abuse on removing your identity, which is what they do. I think master manipulators. I like master manipulators. I think that's a very concise term.
Yeah, I think that's very apt. It's almost hard to wrap your head around that a human could be so calculating and so manipulative. Like, it's, I guess, for someone who does have empathy, this guy, it's just like beyond belief. It's just like, what the fuck? How are you like this? It's really, really horrifying. But anyway, I'd love to slot in the segment TMI. We love it.
TMI, we love it. TMI, we love it.
So I was wondering, Margie, if you have a TMI story for us that would usually be considered too much information or unfit for public consumption in just your average convo.
I'm going to share this one. Obviously, there was a time in my life when I was online dating. And interestingly enough, I think my first experience post-narcissist, and this is not uncommon, you attract another narcissist because you're very desensitized and you tolerate stuff. And fresh onto the dating scene, I look back now and I think textbook narcissist. I met, someone who was very attractive, very into their physical appearance and body, which narcissists can be, not all, grandiose not so much, but they can be. So this is the difficulty with narcissism. People go, but mine's not like that. Well, they don't have to be. But these are just the traits. So this person, this gentleman, was obsessed about their body. What didn't I see? Body, me. Was late for the first date. Now, and I overlooked it. I overlooked it because, hey, what did I know? I hadn't dated for a million years. Late. Was oh so charming and charismatic, and honestly, in that instant, in that first initial, period of a couple of weeks, it was euphoric. But I realise now that the sexual performance and the things that I didn't actually go through with, but the things that he was suggesting was then followed through by gaslighting, telling me that I was, why don't we go to a sex club and I'll watch you with multiple partners? And when I said, that wouldn't be something I'd be actually interested in doing. I was then told that, that was really prudish, and you've got to get up with things. And so you question, think, oh, maybe I, like, how about you get on Tinder and get some other guy around and I'll hide in the bedroom and watch.
Oh my God, a few weeks in, and that's what he's proposing. And I bet he probably made you feel like you were the weird one for not being down with it and being a prude, like they have no respect for boundaries.
I can remember saying that is not something that I think is actually, I couldn't do that as a human being, do that to another person. And once again, the massive gaslighting, like, what are you talking? You're such a prude. Like, oh my God, This is what other people, like, everybody does this, and you hear that a lot from women who's, like, if their husband continually cheats, and I hear this from women in other countries a lot, the husband says, but all men do that. All men watch porn. All men cheat. The gaslighting, and you start to doubt your reality. And so that was a whirlwind couple of months where I'm glad it happened. There were a lot of things that were just the sex write-off was pretty wild and crazy. But then I realised this is a performance. This guy's into performance. There's nothing about me in here. It's just look at me perform.
And so interesting and obviously heartbreaking that, that was your first experience back out in the dating world. They've already kind of, like, the last one had already sort of softened you up and sort of prepared you to be more vulnerable to the next one.
Yes. Invalidation feels perfectly normal because that's your diet when you've got a narcissistic partner, being invalidated. And you have that over and over and over again. When someone invalidates you, you're not going to straight away respond and say that's bullshit. You're going to go, well, let me think about that. Am I?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I want to talk about some solutions here, because I know you work with survivors of narcissistic relationships that have already gotten out and are kind of on the other side, and also people who are still in the grips of a narcissistic relationship. And I know how just so incredibly hard it can be to extricate yourself from a situation like that is, with a master manipulator, as you've said. And I'd imagine that they're very good at saying all the right things, at roping you back in, at getting you to stay when you're attempting to leave. So I kind of feel like it's probably common for the breakup to take a few run-ups, not to just be one easy, clean break. And so I'd love to know some of the stuff that you help women with, and how do we actually go about getting the fuck out of these relationships?
I think that's a really good question. You said that people don't normally just walk away, and yes, it takes weeks, years, months, even decades is acceptable. but I guess the abuse cycle is what keeps us hooked. And the abuse cycle uses, this isn't actually probably answering your question as how do we get people out, but I think, it's helpful in understanding the psychology of what is used in that with narcissists to really understand. So that's what's happening. So if you've got a friend, you can understand from, the sort of behavioral and psychological level, this is what's happening to them. And so narcissists, there is an abuse cycle where they, initially love bomb. You're euphoric, you're amazing. I've never met a woman or a man like you. Everything is, you think, is this for real? This is too good to be true. Well, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And then there's that slow devaluation, and then they discard you, whether they discard you and they're gone, or whether they discard you and you're in the relationship and they just find things that are much more interesting to do while you're in the relationship. So that's the abuse cycle. But the very, very powerful thing that they use is something called intermittent reinforcement. And intermittent reinforcement is the same psychology that, the casinos use. And that is, people who go back to the casinos and you think, you've just lost $2,000 today. Like, are you kidding me? What, why would you do that? And they say, because last year I won $5,000. And it's intermittent reinforcement, the studies was done with rats, lab rats, and the lab rats were pushing a little lever and getting food. But the behavioural scientists that were studying them found that they got a far greater excitement from the rats if the rats pushed a lever, and sometimes they got food, but sometimes they didn't. And so the rats went crazy because they never knew when food was coming. It drove them crazy, and it's exactly the same with the narcissist. We crave them being nice, and we know that they've been really nice. So when they treat us really badly, we crazily go in and try and get more of the good. We go back. I know they can be good. I know that they were really nice once. So we go back. And, when we get that hit of them being nice, like it's the dopamine, we get a high. It's like heroin. Like we get, like, not that I've done heroin, but, that's what the literature says, that high from a narcissist is a high.
Yeah, absolutely. It's addictive. And when you've been deprived of it, like when they've withheld that from you, of course you just want it even more. Like it's sort of often most meaningful coming from them because they're the ones that have withheld it, and therefore it means so much more to receive that thing that you're craving because, they've basically created a situation in your mind where their love or their validation means something about your worth, and that's the sort of balm to soothe your wounds and insecurities. They've set up this structure where their opinion, their treatment of you, that means something about you, in your mind. And it's just, anyway. So I want to know, what about if someone has gotten out of this kind of relationship? They've obviously suffered a lot of damage, a lot of trauma from it. How can we begin to build our confidence and self-worth back up? Like, how can we remember how to listen to our intuition again and learn healthy boundaries? What are some ways to begin rebuilding ourselves and our lives? Like, I know that this is something that women come to you for help with, and I would love to hear about where you start when you are working with someone. How do you help them reclaim their sovereignty and their sense of identity and their self-worth after being in a relationship that has done so much damage and that they may have been in for decades? Like, it's a big task.
Yeah. So the first thing that survivors don't know when they have been in that sort of relationship is, if I ask clients, well, who are you? They can never tell me. They don't even know who they are anymore. So, I kind of work in roughly a 3-part stage, and that is to find out, well, who are you? And what are your current beliefs that you hold about yourself? Because, we are very broken when we leave that relationship. And it's really important probably to start right there and to say, so, because, our beliefs that are all stored in our subconscious brain actually control 95% of what we do. And those beliefs most of them come from childhood. So, it's worth spending time it certainly was, I know, for me and for many clients, to sort of dig around and say, so, I believe that, I actually have to please people to be liked. I believe that, if I don't make people laugh, they won't like me. I believe that people, will walk away from me. Like that. We've got all these beliefs. So, when we were kids, our subconscious brain stores memories, and it's not a process whereby you have a memory when you're 6 and then it's analysed, it's critiqued, and then it's stored neatly as a memory. You just remember. And so a lot of those memories and subconscious beliefs that the narcissist then preys on and lies to us and tells us, you are this sort of person. Everybody hates you. Everybody fights with you. Everybody. And so if you've got a little belief about yourself that says, well, maybe I am, which we all have, maybe I am that person. Maybe I do ask too much. Maybe I do, just because, if ever you try and resolve conflict with a narcissist, you're going to get more conflict. And which is very distressing, because all you actually want to do is resolve it, which they don't. You will then be told, well, you just argue with everyone. Now, maybe you were, a kid who was outspoken, or maybe, you were the middle child and you did, like me, you did like to speak your mind. But in the hands of a narcissist, that's twisted. And so, you've got these unhelpful beliefs that then we talk to ourselves, and we reinforce these beliefs. So the first step is really saying, well, who the hell am I? What do I believe about myself right now? Because it's not helping me. They're beliefs that are actually holding me in a toxic relationship. And so the next step is then, which people, survivors, we just don't realise, that we can actually be anyone we want to be. So it's that process of saying, well, who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? Because we've been invalidated, we've learnt to tolerate, and we've learnt to shut down anything that we want. In order to stay in that relationship of intermittent reinforcement and stonewalling and projection and triangulation and passive-aggressive behaviour and verbal abuse, we've learnt that we have to be a certain way. And so once you're out of there, not even once you're out of there, but it's a process of saying, what do you want your life to be like? And it's this, oh my God, you mean I can have different things? Yeah, you can have whatever you want in life. So it's a process of then establishing, what do you want for the first time in months, years, decades? What do you want your life to be like without the controlling other? And that I'm not sounding, I don't want to downplay things, but it's pretty damn exciting to be free and to say, you mean I'm allowed to have a say in what I want? Yeah, you are. You're actually in control. You're driving the boat now. And that is a really, really critical time, because we don't know we're allowed to drive the boat. So I lost my licence when I met the narc. He took it from me, told me I was a bad driver. So I didn't drive again. That's kind of what happens. So it's really stepping into, and of course, the really, really important thing, I think, in healing from abuse is having a deep understanding about the narcissist and what narcissism is. I think that's really, really, really important. Whether you're co-parenting with someone, you really have to know what you're dealing with. Like when you're divorcing, a narcissist, they're going to act in a certain way. They've got tricks. Remember, they need to be in control. Always. If that means I'm going to take the kids from you, I don't actually remember their names, but I'm going to control the situation. I'm going to have the kids. Why? Because you want them. You know, they act and behave in very predictable ways. They're very predictable. And so if you want that power in healing, you got to know what you're dealing with to navigate your way through. Because they cross boundaries. They don't respect you. And boundaries is a really big part of the abuse, because I don't know that I've ever worked with a client that knows what a boundary is or knows how to set a boundary. We go through life with abuse and we threaten, if you don't stop doing that, or if you do that again, but we never have a consequence. And so every time we threaten the narcissist, I swear, if you do that again, and you're really just teaching the narcissist, yeah, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. So I'm going to give you more of it. And you wonder, why is this happening? You feel like you're going insane. I told him I didn't like that. I told him I didn't like it. Well, that's why you're getting more of it, because you told him you didn't like it.
Oh, I mean, so no wonder how sort of downtrodden and lacking in confidence, you know, these people become. Like the gaslighting is just, you know, it makes you feel like it must be you. Maybe you're just imagining it. Maybe it's not that bad. And also, like, why am I not being listened to? Like, why am I saying one thing and getting another? That's not how things usually work. Like, what's going on here, you know? And it would be easy to start to blame yourself and think like, oh, maybe I'm just too weak. Maybe I'm not assertive enough, or maybe I'm not worth listening to. Like, maybe I'm so pathetic that, you know, people can just walk all over me.
Yeah, and in actual fact, I'm blown away by the quality and caliber and amazing qualities that my clients all have. Like, they're seriously awesome people. And I think, you know, like we blame ourselves. Like,
yeah, they're not weak.
Oh, God, no. The narcissist looks for quality. All those things that they don't have themselves, they need in somebody else to leech. And so, you know, you've got seriously, amazingly wonderful people, and the narcissist is, oh, you look good to me, and you've got this and this and this and this, and you're compassionate and empathic and conscientious and hardworking. So, you know, let me entertain you. And it's true. Yeah, survivors do blame themselves. You know, how could I have let this happen? Why did I let this happen? And it is, I just said they're predictable. You know, look, I've done a reel, and I just used, as I do, something that happened to me personally, and that was, apparently I didn't know that there was a way to stack a dishwasher. And you know, that I was told on a, you know, the fact that I was the one who stacked and unstacked the dishwasher didn't matter. But when I did go about stacking the dishwasher, I was told how stupid I was that I didn't know that there was a way to stack a dishwasher. Now, do you know how many survivors have contacted me and said, I've lived that? I know that. Stacking a bloody dishwasher. Who knew that you were so friggin' stupid that you didn't know, you hadn't read the book somewhere that's been published about there's one way to stack a dishwasher? Now, it sounds pathetic, but if you have 1 million of those little episodes in your life a day that you apparently, as an adult, you didn't know how to do, you know, whether it's, you know, unstack or stack the dishwasher, how to cook mince meat, or how to cook a piece of salmon, or how to put a lid on top of something, that's what's stolen from you, your capacity. Like, don't you know that you don't do it this way? Don't you know that you don't don't you know that? And you think, oh, gee, like you're in your own home. There's no one around to say, excuse me, there is no way to strike a disorder. It's relentless. It's relentless.
Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can also buy some dope merch from my website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. Or if fashion isn't your passion, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which I actually call Buy Me a Sweet Chai Latte, because I will be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. So you can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. Every bit helps because it's not cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me financially in this way. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself, which is at this early stage in Double L history, just the spare bedroom at my house. Anyway, I'll pop the links in the show notes. Later! Yeah, as you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I can relate to so much of this. It's really infuriating. So I'm wondering if you have any, I guess, words or messages for people who, might have kind of come out the other side of this sort of relationship and their narcissistic partner is trying to get them back, or, if you're still in a relationship, and haven't managed to get out of it yet. Like, do you have any words to help bolster a woman's resolve if they're in this position and might be tempted to fall back into old patterns or give the narcissist a second, third, 10th chance?
3 words: they don't change. They don't change. It is an addiction. It is. We are seeking the chemicals that make us feel high. It is an addiction. You think, why do I crave this person? Because that's what your brain, we just want that next dopamine, hit. We want to feel good again. We want some more of that. We haven't had it, like he's been mean for a week. I want some more of that. But that's why, you must understand the nature of narcissism. You must, like if you can, no contact. It's like it's no different to an alcoholic. The only way an alcoholic remains sober is to never have a bloody drink. And their life will be manageable and it'll be sweet and it'll be healthy and they'll be in recovery and things will work out. But if you go back and you go, just this weekend, I want to go out with my friends and I just want to taste red wine again, that's when everything turns to shit again. And it's no different to being in a narcissistic relationship. If you want to be free, you got to do the go cold turkey and go no contact. And it's damn hard because your brain's going, I just need a fix again. He was really, really, really nice. I remember when he did that, or she was so kind, and you go back. And the cycle continues, the abuse cycle. You get hoovered back in, and you think, oh, this feels different this time. They've told me, they've said, and narcissists talk the talk, they just never walk the walk.
Yeah, and they will say everything like they can, all the right things.
All the right things.
And I've sort of supported friends through breakups with narcissists, and it's absolutely the most frustrating, terrifying thing because they are incredibly good at reeling them back in, at saying all of the right things, and it's frustrating being a friend supporting someone just going, oh my God, please hang on, just do not look at your phone, block the number, no, you can't go get coffee with him to let him give your stuff back. Like, that's just an opportunity he's going to have another go at you and to make you change your mind. Like, it's really frightening how much power they have. So yeah, gosh. Anyway, so I'm wondering if, and maybe this is naive, maybe this is, I don't want to sound all toxic positivity up in here, but is there a silver lining that we can focus on when coming out the other side of being in a narcissistic relationship? Like, is it possible to see this as a catalyst for new growth and rebirth and, a reinvention, an opportunity for a fresh start, I'd love to just know if you've found from your experience and from chatting with clients that there can be a silver lining or an opportunity in this for positive growth and change.
Look, I 100% believe that. I think that, in recovering and finding that you do have power to manage your own life and to go forward. I've had client after client say, number one, it was cathartic to me when I understood what I was dealing with and it wasn't me. And I could then see the behaviours and manage them. And then I see this incredible, sort of growth of people being incredibly happy and incredibly amazing. Like, I'm continually in awe of what clients are able to do once they're free, and once they start to understand. So this is what happened to me. They dig deep and they go, wow, like I've managed to survive and live through this. Man, I can do anything. Yeah. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. And they start to sort of see those qualities that the narcissist shut down and take them back and say that actually is something pretty awesome about me. And every survivor, says, I do remember when I was happy. I haven't been happy for months, years, weeks, decades, but I do remember the old happy me. So I don't think it's being toxic positivity or anything. I just think, life, once you know that you're in the driver's seat and you get to, which we don't, obviously, when we're in an abuse situation and we're tolerating it. But once you take back control, anything's possible.
Oh, well, this has just been so eye-opening and so fascinating, and I'm sure really, really validating and comforting for a lot of people listening to this, because, yeah, I mean, it sort of goes in line with my theme of trying to make sure I put out episodes and content that reassure people they're not alone, they're not broken, there's nothing wrong with them, regardless of what they're experiencing. And I think something that is really vicious is, this I guess stigma and taboo, like I was saying before, creating an environment where we don't talk about stuff, we don't feel supported, or as though there's other people experiencing what we're experiencing, because no one's fucking talking about it. So I really want to honor you for getting the word out, talking about all of this stuff that usually happens behind closed doors, and really like illuminating the fact that it's going on quite a lot. There's a lot of people that are experiencing this, and you are now a resource. This episode is now a resource for those people so that they don't feel so isolated and so that they're not feeling alone and as though it's something wrong with them and that they're broken. So yeah, we've done exactly what my jingle sets out to do. So really, 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 really thank you so much for that, Margie.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And if you, as I said, if you look at my Instagram following, I've got some very, very dedicated followers who share and support and I guess one of the most powerful things is for survivors to go, goddamn, we're not alone. And there are other women who are, and men. I've got male clients, whether it's your narcissistic wife, husband, child, mother, father, boss, friend. There's so many people that are suffering because of these personality types and traits that are toxic. And so, you're so not alone. If you're experiencing it, you can bet that I hate to make a guess at how many other people, but no matter where you are in the world, there's other people who are going through exactly what you're going through. It's not you. It's not you.
Exactly. See, you're not alone. You're not alone. Cool. So what are you working on at the moment? How can people work with you? You do one-on-one with clients. Have you got any programs or, talk to us. How can we engage with your work?
I was going to say I have been plagued by people to give them more. We want more. So the teacher in me is working on basically a blueprint of, what did I do? What was really profoundly helpful for me to move into thriving. So it's a work in progress, but I am going to, release courses around, the first one, as I said, is understanding narcissism, having a deep and thorough understanding. And now there's language that we can use, there's a whole repertoire. There's so many words that, like gaslighting is one, that people can say, okay, so, walking on eggshells is a thing. And there's such things as flying monkeys and grey rock. And so it's great. There's now a language that survivors can say, this is how I was treated, but now I understand that they're running a smear campaign on me, because that's what they do. So,
wow, I had not heard of most of that language. That's really amazing that you're working on something like that, and there is that language that people can learn about to help validate their experience. So how long until you think you'll be releasing that program?
I hope in about 2 months. I'm working day and night to sort of really put in exactly what I think, this is what helped me, and putting it together so that, because where do you start? Like, who do you go and see? Like, I saw 3 psychiatrists and 12 psychologists, but nobody, so it's really, really hard for survivors to go, well, I want to heal, I want to start, but who can really help me? It's really difficult to know.
Yeah, of course. Like that is sometimes one of the biggest barriers, is like knowing where to go for help and who to ask for support, and there not being a whole lot available to you. So thank God you exist. And I'd highly recommend checking out Margie's Instagram, all of the reels and content. So valuable, so relatable. If you, like most of us, at least have known a narcissist. I'll pop all the links in the show notes. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being here in the Labia Lounge and part of this thing I'm creating here, my dear.
My pleasure. Thanks, Freya.
Much love, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's it, darling hearts. Thank you for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. And in the meantime, if you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that, my dear, is a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism. And you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. Also, I'm always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, or guest suggestions. So feel free to get in touch via my website at freyagraph.com or say hey over on Insta. My handle is Freya_graph_YMT, and I seriously hope you're following me on there because damn, we have fun. We have fun. Anyway, later labial legends. I'll see you next time.